All right.
Yep.
And we have people there. Charlie's gonna try to be on Zoom. All right, it is 6 p.m. I call the planning commission special meeting to order. It is Thursday, January 29th, 2026, and we are in the city hall meeting. Roll call.
Detmer. Here. Freed.
Here.
Meridian.
Here.
Moss.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
Robson.
Present. And we also have Ted with us because he's on the zoning committee. All right. Public comment. This is an opportunity for public to comment on items not on the meeting agenda. Members of the public may address the planning commission regarding any subject of community interest during the public comment period. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Comments during other portions of the agenda may or may not be entertained at the chairperson's discretion. Does the public want to make a comment?
No.
All right. Moving on to our business tonight, the zoning ordinance. We're going to discuss the current zoning districts. We've been provided with maps, descriptions of the different zoning districts, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay, I guess tonight's a work session. Open discussion. I thought maybe it'd be best we start out with the business districts first. I have provided in advance of the meeting an analysis of each of the 7 business districts that we have and the uses that are allowed in each of the business districts, and the ones that are also allowed as a special use under a special use permit. And I tried to highlight the ones that appear in multiple districts so you can see how some of these districts they're like a pyramid, starting out with B1 and then you carry it over to B2. Some of the B2A uses are in the B2B uses, so on and so forth. I guess the decision for the planning commission is if you want to maintain the existing districts in the revised code, that's fine. If you think there's an opportunity to consolidate some of the districts, that's fine. And then I also provided this evening, each of you a copy of the city's future land use map and the zoning plan that was in the future land use document. Because in the future land use plan, which is different than the zoning map, in the future land use map, which is this one right here. Okay. There's only 3 general categories for commercial. There's mixed use, neighborhood mixed use, corridor mixed use, and urban core mixed use. The urban core is primarily the central business district. The corridors are what we would think of as our main corridors, US 131, 31. And then you have your neighborhood mixed use district, which is kind of fragmented throughout the city and actually includes areas that are zoned currently B1, B2A, B2B, OS, and industrial. So future land use map had rather broad general locations for commercial by type, and the zoning ordinance has 7 specific zoning districts. So, we're at that point in the revised code where we need to create come up with the zoning districts and the land uses. So before we start on that process, I just want to make sure that we're comfortable with what we have, or if there's an opportunity to consolidate, or even if we need to create a new district in order to help advance the future land use map. So it's kind of a wide open discussion tonight.
John, I have a question if I could. You weren't here for the future land use map. This was the previous?
Yes,
Right. Yes. And I think I was on the planning commission at the time.
you're listed in the acknowledgements.
Cynthia, maybe your recollection. That was kind of a difficult discussion. I didn't exactly maybe being there wasn't exactly clear. So I just wanted you to know, we discussed it to some degree, but it wasn't,
It was very confusing.
it wasn't a robust discussion about
Okay,
a direction. It was kind of, I'm not sure how to say it. Maybe simply.
Yeah.
But in thinking about, you know, these two maps that are in front of us now, future land use and the zoning, it seems like they should coincide more directly than they do now.
Mhm.
It's my opinion, you know, that the zoning district should reflect the future land use map better than it does now.
Just like this was done in 2020. Correct.
Was it ever very-
25.
Probably, yeah. And I
It was
just want to
adopted in
point out
20.
that I don't recall
Oh, it is 2020.
like an extreme robust discussion about like,
Mhm.
like I don't know if I even heard the term consolidation of districts so much talked about at the time.
Right.
But clearly, if you look at this, it seems to suggest that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just saying
Right.
it's interesting.
So were the recommendations at that time by the planning commission, and this was forwarded to the city council, what action? I mean, this, it says it's off to the city planner, but do the minutes or whatever of the planning commission and city council meetings at that time, that you had a discussion, was it actually action taken?
Well, I think it was adopted maybe as part of the,
Yeah.
what community plan were we working on at the time?
well, this comes out of the livable
Yeah,
Petoskey
okay.
master plan.
That's
Right, that's what I wanna make sure it was.
Yeah, and and that was adopted both, it was adopted by city council, recommended for adoption by the planning commission.
Right.
I think if anything, I would say that this map shows that the areas that are same color are more alike than different. And it may encompass some, and then probably leads to this discussion.
Mhm.
Well, you know, if you think about if you go back to this map that was provided to us more recently, the commercial zoning districts. If you think about, you know, the difference between B3 general business, the purple zone versus, you know, the B3B resort commercial. You know, are they really any different?
B3A.
Drive those zones.
Well, Rick, I want to point out, I noticed that on the map, you're talking about the B3B is commercial industrial. That's the designation, business industrial. It's not, there's not a second resort, it's business industrial,
So
B3B.
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 Number, yeah.
It appears that the B3, one of them has a more stringent height limitation. Is that?
Yeah, that's B3A, and if you go back. And to when the B3A was like in the late 80s. It was in response largely to first the Apple Tree Hotel, which blocked significant view into the bay. And so that's when they started looking at the PUD, Brook Rescue that we talked about last time, that's why the hotel that was visible in there, there was a lot of concern about the view. That is, for me, I'll use Ted's term, not Ted's terms, Charlie's future term that he talked about in a lot of art. That's what I'm gonna die in hell for, is keeping B3A. Such that you can see the city, and then you can see the view. I've heard people say, and they're entitled to their opinion, well, the hospital blocks the view. Right, yeah, it does, that's not good either. And so if you're looking at, you know, areas that would block the view, it was important to the sense that time. The planning commission meetings that you had the most people at, we were talking about B3A, who had citizens comment. And so. Now, I agree, there's a lot of similar use, and maybe this is where we talk about one of those overlay zones. That hey, it's exactly the same as all the other B3s or whatever, if they have very similar use. Except in this area, because of the special the concern of the view in Petoskey, and if you look at all of our plans in the past, I could pull out a whole bunch of other documents. That says we can look at the view, and so for me. Keeping that, what is the southwest corner, southwest corner of Sheridan and, Spring Street, and then Spring Street from Sheridan to Porter. Keeping that, that goes screen boxes at the 25-foot level, it's very important to me. I don't know what the other commissioners think, but.
Well, to me, that's where the term community care percentage comes into place. I mean, in addition to just thinking about colors on a map, we've got to take into consideration what is the character of these neighborhood areas. And like you coming down the hill, it's a big element of the character of that zone that does, to me, distinguish it as being different from US 31 all the way through our community.
Right, and obviously, I'm in that neighborhood and prejudicial from that, and John, at the same time, everybody who comes to Petoskey benefits from that view. My belief is our downtown businesses benefit from that view. We travel a lot. We take 6 weeks to 8 weeks a year that we travel. And when you come up to a community like Petoskey and you see something like that, you are wanting to go down into that area to see it. If you don't see the view, you may or may not decide, hey, I need to turn off here and go down to the parks and see some of the other things, so.
So John, if I'm correct, we're coming into town on 131 and 31, those two meeting and then going up to the river, or I'm sorry, the river, the bridge there. Everything is some version of a B3 with a 2-story height, except for that little pink section near the hospital there.
Well, West Mitchell is distinctly different just because of the setbacks. And the, maybe the uses aren't that much different. They're all generally commercial uses, but the setback and just the character of the streetscape makes a big difference there.
So I'm talking about the height issue we just talked about though. So that basically right now, Albert, on this map, it looks like it is currently all 2 stories,
Right.
but with different B3 designations, which is not going to affect height, it's going to affect uses. And I think setbacks, Rick, as you said, between the purples and the light greens and the dark greens.
General business is 30 feet, correct?
The height is 30.
Yeah, B1, the three that are 25, B3B, B3A, and B1. I'm relying on the data.
B3 general is 2 stories and 30.
Right.
So the rest of them are.
All the B3s are 2 stories, 25 to 30.
I feel like we need to talk about B1 first, because I don't understand why we have a B1. Like,
That little
yeah,
spot there.
why isn't that one just a B3?
Well, wouldn't that be West Mitchell, kind of the local business? If you look back to the future land use map where they're designating West Mitchell. Parts of the Emmett Street corridor, going along the Greenway corridor.
Yeah, I mean,
As being local business.
with the uses that are in that B1 district over by Mitchell and Connable, that's an audio place, I think, and then Fifth Third Bank. That's it. I mean, you could typically find those in a
There's
corridor,
a dentist.
but there's you could typically find those in corridor commercial areas. It's kind of like an odd duck, just
Yeah.
why that's a B1 right out
Right.
there.
And then there's 2 other B1s that are tiny little spots
Oh,
all by themselves.
Yeah,
Let me see one.
one's over at
Okay,
Kalamazoo.
so if you look at the
Four
map,
Corners neighborhoods.
one's way over here. If you look.
Oh, and the ones on
It's marked
Liberty,
that.
Liberty and
And
Jackson.
then the other one
The 4 corners on Main Street.
right there. And we were talking about allowing. In some of the residential areas of. Doing a throwback and allowing, corner brochures and some. Things like that are appropriate for a neighborhood, have been traditional in the past. But there are ways to limit. You don't want one on every block, you don't want to tear down a house to put one in. But there are ways of writing the ordinance so that
The
they're
ones
not
we
allowed.
have, we should encourage them to be maintained.
Right.
Yes.
And they could easily fall into the general business.
Mhm.
Well, just for discussion, as I'm looking at this map and, everything. West of the river. These B3 zones. Is there any? I mean, if you took that section, is there anything you do to combine that? Or not, John, what do you think?
You're talking west of the river,
Yeah,
the West Mitchell Street area?
yes,
So the purple
Well, once you get to
the purples and
and the
the
greens.
greens. How different are they? How similar are they? The height is pretty similar.
The height is pretty similar to it.
Yeah. So it's,
I think the West Midland would be something separate just because of the character of the streetscape there. The kind of businesses that are sort of in there are different than the sort of the auto oriented. Most of which gets, more 31 and 131.
mhm,
So you're talking the purple between Madison and the bridge,
purple, yeah.
Right, yeah.
and how's that different than the purple between the Charlevoix intersection and the hospital?
Well, the character of the streetscape is very different. You know, once you get up on the intersection of 31 and 131, you've got generally bigger parcels and drive-in parking lots and that sort of thing, where the buildings are more set back from the highway frontage. As opposed to those 3 or 4 blocks just west of the river.
And isn't the area along Mitchell between, say, Madison and the river? Isn't that an area that's prime for redevelopment right now? I mean, a lot of the buildings in there. You know, when I was a kid, was Wellington's Pharmacy. And not when that hospital building recently before it became. The insurance company, and the old bus station and vacuum shop. Seems like a lot of those buildings would be. That would be the area that would be prime for redevelopment because they're getting older.
Yeah, I know one of those houses right in there. On the south side is going to be redeveloped as a contractor's business.
So John, this dark green on 131 coming into town compared to the purple seems pretty similar in height, pretty similar in setbacks. But of course, the uses would be somewhat different.
Well, I was gonna ask in regard to that, I was gonna ask John, when the B3D is business/industrial. Do we really have any industrial uses that are on that corridor? Is that an appropriate?
Where you went over here.
Mhm.
Let's see.
What's the that?
And industrial uses
No.
used to have the county road commission.
Mhm. That building is still there, but it's
Yeah, it's not.
actually,
Is it owned by the hospital?
it's, no,
Oh,
I think it's actually,
I think the only thing over there is. Is basically you got the car dealership. And then you have the old Emmett County Road Commission building. You got Wendy's, so I mean, there's really no industrial there.
I think it's kind of this corridor, they have the
Yeah.
word industrial on that zone district.
The other guy's Wilson says.
You know, Wilson-
nursery.
It's a nursery.
Retail. That's what
It's nursery could also be construed as retail with outdoor display or commercial, yeah. So I mean, yeah, the business industrial is kind of you would almost think that you're gonna see some industrial uses in there,
Right.
there's nothing there.
No, the fairground, the cemetery.
You got the fairgrounds and
That's
some.
consolidated those districts.
But if you don't have that district, I mean, aren't we not permitting any industrial use at all?
Well, do you want an industrial use? I wouldn't recommend any industrial uses on that section of 31.
well, we have other industrial districts though.
Yeah, yeah,
But I wonder, our industrial district is by the river.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that go to residential.
well, that's in your future land use, and no, in your. Not on your future land use map, but in the livable cities, livable master plan. That area along the river is called mixed use residential, they have it as redevelopment areas.
Mhm.
So there was discussion about the conversion of some of those older industrial properties to
Mhm.
residential. Not to industrial.
Yeah,
So,
Dasky Grove. In the future land use plan, doesn't look like there's any,
What's that?
there doesn't look like there's any plan for industry. So to speak. And what we would consider industrial uses in the future land. use. There's not-
Well, yeah, because historically, the Bear River corridor was the industrial area of the city.
And I don't think that's bad.
Yeah.
Dasky is big.
but legally, we could say no more industrial can be built in Emmett County.
Yeah.
So-
And that covers us for
Well, that's
not
the
being liable for.
Question I had, John, don't you have to allow for all uses?
Yeah, yeah, but you're still gonna have, there is still some industrial areas down by. Where Howard comes in by Clarion and in that area down in there.
Right.
So, but, in the future land use map, that area is color coded neighborhood mixed use. And when you read the description in the plan, it's for a combination of. Residential, single family, multiple family. Some limited commercial, kind of a mix of what's there now, kind of like what you've got going on with. The lofts, and then right next across from it is the. Elder Piper, and there's and then, over, half a block away, you've got you got the party store.
Mhm.
Right next to the residential area, so that's just the concept in the future, in the master plan was. To kind of continue that collection of uses along that particular corridor.
And it looks like to me, the areas that are industrial still, that Buckley.
Mhm.
Standish Pass. And then, most of Clarion could. Be industrial, it's on the other side of it. But, just the way that land is being used now. Now that Clarion on the other side of the river would also be nice for residential redevelopment.
The other part that, one thing I looked at was, the difference, like, for example. In your B3 versus B3A. Really, the only additional, the uses that are permitted in the B3A. Are uses permitted in the M2 district and motels and hotels. But then you have to ask yourself. At least the question I asked is. If you're gonna limit the height to 2 stories and 25 feet. You're really not gonna have a hotel. Okay, I mean,
That's part of.
I mean, it's-
We've got hotels.
Yeah.
Even in that. As long as it's not blocking you, that even in the PUD. We talked about last time. As long as it's. Back off the road, they could put a hotel on the south. East part, where Kmart is, it would not block the view, but you have to, that's PUD in there.
that's PUD, and I think it's a hotel already allowed in that.
It was previously approved.
Yeah,
John, were you just talking, I'm sorry, about B3A, is that what you're talking?
yeah, the B3A, the permitted uses are
Yeah.
uses in the RM2. And then hotels and motels,
So,
but the limit is 2-story, and in today's world. You never see a hotel at 2 stories, they're always 3 or 4.
so compared to the B3 and the B3B, as I looked at this, they put way bigger setbacks, it looks like on the B3A, a 50-yard front. And a 40-yard back, and they're.
Yeah, and they did that specifically for the view.
And again, I know that won't be a use, but we have other places you can put hotels. Besides that use, and,
Yeah.
could you, if you wanted to have if you wanted to have a district that allowed. Some of the other business uses along there, so that there's a business. Having an overlay that said they're less than 25 feet, that would allow some of these other, there's a bank there now, there's a accounting business there now. So, but keeping it under 25 feet, because that was a huge issue, and as long as we keep. If a hotel can't be built on that side of the road, so what? What's it about?
So John, back in that 131 corridor coming out, could those, my map, I've got it's dark green. On the east side of the highway coming in, how Could they be purple? Could they just be B3? I'm not seeing. Or the uses we're missing?
Well, presently, B three doesn't allow motels and hotels, presently.
Okay,
Subject to special conditions.
Yeah.
And the B three does allow single family,
Does it what?
it does allow single family detached.
Well, the thing is, you had, I forget what you call it, but it's like nesting where. What's in B1 is okay in B2 some more.
Yeah.
It's okay in B2A plus some more, so it just keeps stacking.
Yeah.
And I don't think we wanna do that.
Well, you get a good example between B2A and B2B. You can start in bakeries, banks, brew pubs, daycare, food services. I mean, they kind of shift over into the same district. Many of them do.
Multiple family and single family get taken all the way through. I think you can have RM. One is allowed as you get into the deeper, so in industrial, you could put a single family home in there. Industrial is what we're paying on, and that's certainly. Well, I suppose if we wanna change it over, maybe that's not such a bad thing, but
So should we be looking at B1? B3, B3A, B3B, and then going through and seeing what we wouldn't want to be allowed in those if we made them all one? That's just the best way to look at it now.
yeah,
Then we can talk about it for hours. I think that's the best approach.
Well,
Seems to me that 3 commercial districts would be the way to go. We've got our central business district, we've got neighborhood business, and then we've got more corridor, or general business.
right.
Yeah.
Those would be the logical 3 categories. And maybe the 4th one being, the resort commercial along 139. Maybe there's a 4th one that's special.
What if that just says view corridor overlay?
Or yeah, something like that, maybe, yeah,
I think.
to distinguish it.
So this zoning districts, you talk about walkable neighborhoods, suburban neighborhoods, and flex neighborhoods, and then business and industrial. In the new zoning ordinance,
those were some of the proposed when we started out.
right?
Yeah.
But that would be, I think this would be more for residential,
Residential, yeah, in the,
business, so business and industrial
Yeah.
would be.
yeah. I mean, I was gonna kind of go where Rick was going. Typically, when you start out with looking at business districts, you start out in broad groups like downtown, corridor, neighborhood. And then, if you want to add specialty areas, you do that, or you add overlays. To allow an overlay can, not only limit manage dimensional requirements, but also manage uses.
Use, yeah.
Seems like gets complicated.
Yeah, like office service seems like it could. Combine with the business as well, when you look at downtown. There's the church.
I don't think we have hardly any office service anymore as a district.
Oh.
So is everybody in agreement in doing the quarter mixed use, the downtown use? And what was the other one?
Neighborhood.
Commercial.
Neighborhood commercial. Like focus on those 3 categories and see.
Neighborhood mixed use.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that as long as we have opportunity to do overlays or something. And
Right.
not only in our area, maybe,
Right.
maybe. If you have a residential district that is a food desert, you can put an overlay in there that says in this area. We will allow, that's a corner grocer kind of thing. If you, the thing that you can't walk, within a mile, you can't find a 7-Eleven, you're in the food desert, so.
That's not allowed.
Whatever,
You missed them, several.
Yeah, Cynthia, I like that idea. I think then, you know, I mean, John, would have to, you know, then we drop like a sample thing, and then the job would be to start to see, well, what doesn't fit? What's the problem?
Mhm.
Yeah,
And then you could have a good discussion.
well, you know, if. Let me just. I kind of think differently in graphics. Let's have if you did this, let me see here. Why dig that stuff? Uh. Okay. If you take a look at a table that's got on one axis has walkability, on the other axis has vehicular traffic, then what commercial area would be in an area that's more walkable, less vehicular? A downtown. So then you start allocating the uses that are more pedestrian oriented into that district. Then as you get more vehicular, then you may be into an area that's corridor, which is that's where you have your drive-throughs, your banks, your ATMs, that kind of stuff. And then in the middle somewhere is where you kind of plug in maybe your neighborhood. But if you think about it in terms of pedestrian access versus vehicular access, then you can start allocating when you go through these charts with all these land uses. You can pick a land use and say what land use is really dependent on foot traffic and what land use is dependent on vehicular traffic. See what I mean?
Mhm.
So John, in your experience, we could do this exercise and have wouldn't be a lot of sense for a way to develop a town and lay out a town. But then you're gonna have some non-conformities, I assume.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then how much of a flashpoint is that, considering, I mean, obviously they can continue as is,
Yes.
but where people just say, I love this, you guys just disallowed this thing that I love. Of course, it can stay there, but they get emotional or unhappy because they say it's fine here. Is that a problem? Like if we do this exercise?
Yeah, we can. Can you access Google? Show an example.
Problem is that if it's a
Do you want,
If you can go to Google Images.
You can't sell that business.
You know, it's hard to make changes.
Yeah, Google Earth.
Images.
Right.
Images, sorry.
Or if they, some thought they were gonna sell their business.
Okay, and then type in when you get there.
Well, I think you can still sell it as long as you didn't change it.
Okay.
you know.
Type in
You're
Jefferson
selling that before me?
Street Market, Ann Arbor, Michigan.
As long as you're not, always, you know, you're not
You don't
gonna.
need to
number up.
Yeah. I would think so.
Yeah, right there. Show that right there.
This one?
Yeah. Okay, here's an example.
Change it.
This is. Where'd it go?
Oh.
You're
Good question.
getting too fast on
I'm
me.
getting, no,
Alright,
I was
so-
trying to open it up so you could get a
No.
full view of the building.
There.
This was a market that is in a neighborhood in the old west end of Ann Arbor. Across the street is an elementary school, and then a block down was the old Argus Camera Factory, which is now offices of U of M and our corporate offices there. This building sat vacant for like 20 or 30 years because it was classified non-conforming. Eventually, the city updated its code to allow for different classes of nonconformity, and the property owner, somebody bought the building, went to the city and said, I'd like to reopen it as a small bakery and a local food place for the neighborhood. So they sell coffee, sandwiches. The kids go in there and get an ice cream after school. But it reactivated that building and did a heck of a lot for that neighborhood. But under a lot of our current ordinances, this is not allowed.
Right.
But this is a great example of if your ordinance is, you know, if you allowed a non-conforming use to remain and continue, you have those type of uses like you have the corner scoops down in Kalamazoo, you know, which is kind of a local thing for everybody. But we also have some of these same buildings that I showed you over on this side of town around Madison and Ingalls and Jackson back in here that sat vacant for years, and now some of them been converted into housing which kind of looks funky. But I know that some of those buildings probably could have been reactivated for some small commercial use activities. An art gallery, for example, or small bakery. We-
allowed?
No, because they're zoned residential, they're non-conforming. I think one time, Lisa, didn't we have somebody that wanted to do a catering business?
Mhm.
They wanted to buy one of the buildings and put their catering business in there, but the ordinance wouldn't allow it.
John, so generally if something's non-conforming, it continues. If it's sold, could someone buy it and continue the same business?
Yes, yeah.
Just, you can't expand it, change it.
Well, I think in the new ordinance that we have, I think we have a classification where you can expand a non-conforming use as long as it doesn't,
Increase the
well,
non-conformity.
as long as it doesn't impact the other dimensional requirements of the district. Okay, so you can expand a non-conforming use to make the lot larger than what the normal district would be, or expand it into the setbacks. Because sometimes you have a non-conforming use,
Right.
but
Okay.
but dimensionally, it's fine.
Okay,
Okay, see what I mean?
Yeah,
There's differences. So we're looking at downtown corridor neighborhood plus an overlay, which would be more like a view shed overlay. But we're gonna have to figure out how to work that puppy through. You know,
so I like that idea, John. How would we go about this then? Would you? I mean, would we here tonight? How would we draw these sample areas?
well, I could take a whack at it with the map. So, I mean, we all like the maps with the colors. So, I mean,
Right.
that's the first thing is, do you like where the districts are at? And then I can make an attempt at putting land uses in the various buckets. And then you guys can look at them and say, do these work?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think it'd be a lot easier to respond to something like that.
yeah, but I just needed to get some direction from you
Yeah.
folks on where you wanted to go.
Well, I think if you actually have it right here on the future land use.
It may be pretty close.
It may be close.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, I didn't.
I think that gets back to what Rick is saying, is if we have a chance, let's try to make the zoning mirror up a little bit with the future land use map.
I don't know, are we gonna talk residential tonight? or are we just
Well, yeah, I
talking
mean, if,
Commercial,
well, I mean, seems like you guys have kind of given me some direction on the commercial, which I thought was gonna take 2 hours. So I guess we can talk residential if you want. I don't have a lot prepared, but
well, hold on. Does anybody have any more comments about business? Okay,
Well, I would,
okay, Rich.
yeah, I think when we get back to business. The possibility of combining B2A, B2B, those are so similar. That'd be one possibility, I don't know.
Yeah, I like John's example of plotting out what uses go where. So if it's downtown core, what uses we want to put there because it's walkable versus corridor versus drive-through. And then that'll give us the information we need that how we fill those things in.
I think my biggest hesitancy was, my biggest suspect was creating some things non-conforming,
Yes,
and how that would be perceived, but maybe it's not such a problem.
may not be, depending on how you set the districts up with the intent.
Mhm.
Because I think the issue, or not the issue, where the future land use plan was, their master plan was going, each of these districts are actually referred to as a mixed use district, which kind of reflects that it's not gonna be just all commercial, it's gonna be a combination of commercial and residential and office.
Mhm.
You know, and there's different degrees and probably different densities associated with it, so.
You think, John, a more modern trend, or I just see a lot of circumstances where someone's got a business, sometimes they just retire and close, but sometimes they do try and sell it for a while, and there's been it seems to me like a lot of examples around town where they just never can sell it and they go away. It's like, I don't see these things, maybe in the old days they did,
You're talking about in residential districts,
no businesses,
in a regular business district?
right? So you may have. I've seen several examples around town where someone wanted to sell the restaurant, the thing, the whatever, and it just didn't. The clothing store, maybe
And they just close.
they just closed.
It happens, I guess. I mean, look at where the Jimmy John's is going. That was a gas station in it.
Mhm.
You know, even though it was on one of the
Right.
primary corners, it closed, right? I don't know.
I'm just kind of making the point that just because something's a use now, it's not gonna be that,
And
there's a strong chance forever.
no, in today's world, I would say you're correct.
Right.
So John, as you do those. Potential districts, will you have something similar to this at the same time that gives us an idea of the
Yeah.
dimensional plan?
Well, I'm not gonna vary too much from what we got.
Okay, all right, good.
Cause that's where you start creating a lot of nonconformities.
Right, that's what I
So I wanna make sure that we don't do that.
as we look at residential, I wanna look at. How much of the city is already non-conforming and do we have? You know,
Well,
the neighborhood I grew up in, those houses were built in 1900, they're on totally. 30, some of them were 34-foot lots. And they are, I mean. So as we look at residential, so we look at kind of almost the same thing. And I don't wanna use the word old because, and I also don't wanna use the word historic because I don't wanna. Limit somebody's facade because of historic. But the historic working man's neighborhood that we have a lot of those around. We're small lots. You know, and now if somebody wants to put an attached garage in their house, which you really need in Michigan. You get all kinds of problems with 35%.
Well, I mean, that's something, Al, that,
And side yard setback.
that's, some communities now are increasing the amount of lot coverage.
Yeah, I'm, you know, at the same time that,
I
that jumps up against.
I can't tell you
Big man.
where, no one's ever been able to show me where that magic number of 30% lot coverage ever came from. That everybody seems to use, 30 or 35%.
Like I said, I looked at where I grew up on Harvey Street, 14 houses. 13 of the 14 are non-conforming as far as square feet.
Yeah.
You have to be 6,000 square feet, they're all under 6,000 except for one. And of the 14 houses, just this one block, and if you want to drive up Harvey Street, that's a fairly common layout of a block in the whole town, that's, I don't know what you want to call it. Everything from, you know, from Emmett to Kalamazoo, south of Grove.
Well, I guess I mean, we done talking business districts, we talking residential now,
No, that's what I thought we were crazy.
I mean,
Anyway, I'm sorry, we got more businesses,
you,
especially.
you still got some discussions on?
No, I had just brought up about the A and B combining.
yeah, I think we'll be looking at that then.
Yeah, with the new versions, yes. Okay,
But my point is. Should we, when you had us do character, that's why I have some, when you had us do character, I did. A typical professor saying I don't go too far into the rabbit hole. But, I looked at what our lot coverages were and how many square feet the lots were in those neighborhoods that we looked at. And, you know. If there are two, there's a whole lot of Tosky that doesn't have a 6,000 square foot lot margin. There's a whole lot. So should we be looking at the whole thing?
Yes, we should, I agree.
yeah,
I think, you know,
Well, again, when we get to residential, John, this idea you talked about of, you know, what's a front yard setback, it's an average, a lot of these things. That the blocks were different and to keep the feel and the conformity. To some extent, that's what I think, John, are these R1, R2, R3s, is it solved, is it one residential district? If a lot of your setbacks. Are, maybe heights are what's
yeah,
in that.
I
area.
mean. If we're talking residential conceptually. I'm not a big proponent of any lot size. Okay, and the reason being is my own experience. First house I bought when I was in college the lot was 24 feet wide. But it had a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, kitchen, living room, full basement in it. But it was 24 feet wide, 150 feet deep. You had to park out on the street, great house. You know, so to me, it's not about the size of the lot, it's about meeting some of the minimum dimensions in order for basically to mirror with the neighborhood and to make sure that you have sufficient setbacks for fire safety. So who cares if it's a 40-foot lot and they meet the side yard setbacks and they meet the front yard average? Okay, and then there would be their decision if they want to if they can fit a driveway or put a garage in the back, but then you have to take a look at the lot coverage. Do we all need to have 30% lot coverage. I mean, is that the golden rule, or can we tell people they can have up to 50%, especially if they're looking at the primary building plus a garage, and if they want to have an accessory dwelling unit? I mean, these are some of the key aspects of, don't focus on lot size, focus on some of the dimensional requirements, and then let the lot size be organic depending on the neighborhood. I mean, Lisa and I had a case before the ZBA over on Madison Street. When those houses were platted, they were platted with two houses. There was one in the front and one in the back, and they were owned by the same property owner. And then we went to the property owner that had eventually bought a lot of them, came to the ZBA and said, hey, I've got people that are renting that would like to buy it, but they can't afford to buy theirs and the other house. So can we split them? And the ZBA said, yeah. So the zoning board of appeals created these extra small little lots, accessibility off of an alley, that the property owner then sold to the people that were renting because they could afford the land contracts on it. Did it impact the neighborhood character? No, because that was part of the character back in 1905.
But it made the, I'm also concerned about home ownership. At least it made homeowners, and I think homeowners have more commitment to the city in the long term, and that's one of my concerns if we start looking at. When we start looking at quads and fives, in the residential neighborhood. Because if they we also have to have home ownership, in my little Harvey Street thing. My next door neighbor worked for the city. 2 blocks up was a nurse, across the street was a guy that worked for Bell Telephone, these were just working class, working neighborhoods. We don't have those now, because our property values have gone up so high. And things to preserve small neighborhoods and small housing. That's one of the things that's in the housing plan from the Northern Michigan Housing.
Right, so with Petoskey being built out,
Right.
future development is just another word for tear downs, right?
Mhm.
If there's already stuff there, so I like the idea that the neighborhood, the look and feel stays the same. I don't really care, like, we'd see examples of historically done duplexes, triplexes, maybe even quadplexes that looks like a
house.
where the character and dimensions, and that doesn't bother me so much. What bothered me is drastically altering the line in some way that in no way fits in with everything else. I think people live in a neighborhood and they kind of expect, they don't know what the zoning rules are.
No,
It's all built out, they kind of expect it's kind of gonna be like this. And then someone rips something down and if something totally different gets done, it can be disturbing.
I think the results of the community character survey that we did a few months ago, when we did the open response survey, is people, they want to maintain the characters of their neighborhood. Okay, and they use terms like gentle density, or they didn't have an issue with increasing density, but not radically.
Right.
But the big thing was they wanted to maintain the character of their neighborhood in terms of what their front yards look like, in terms of how their backyards look, things along those lines. The style of the housing. So I kind of agree with you, Ted. It's not, people aren't necessarily focused on dimensional requirements as they are about kind of their impression about the character of the neighborhood that they're in.
Yeah, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
So, while I appreciate the character of my neighborhood, and particularly the house I own on Michigan Street, kitty corner to both Carolyn and myself is a quadplex. And they don't have ample parking, and there are multiple garbage cans that remain in the easement throughout the week.
So I'm not sure which house you're talking, would this be,
Kind of Harvey and.
would it be, what was the house originally? Was it a single family or was
It's
it?
a boarding house,
Was it?
yeah.
So, I wouldn't want that house to be rebuilt. I mean, it's chaos. There are people constantly walking to their vehicles. They could be hit going down the hill, you can't stop. My house there on Michigan Street sits 2 foot 2 inches from the lot line. And it's horrible to do any sort of work on it because my neighbor maintains his yard meticulously and I want to respect that. So I think, you know, the side yard setbacks are appropriate. I think that they're, you know, they're good. I think our lot coverage is also, great. When I look at like the city of Birmingham, which had Bigfoot homes, they buy multiple to create something
Mhm.
larger. But also the ADU exception would be fantastic and provide additional housing, but do I think 50% would be appropriate? No, maybe 42%. I think, what is it, 33 if you have a lot that's 7,200 square foot and under right now, and then
Or up, 7,200 or above. If it's under 7,200, it's 35. That's in the R2.
yeah,
Mhm.
and you can build a pretty large home on the smallest lot in Petoskey. We need to have some sort of green space in between our houses.
I'm
So that's-
gonna somewhat dovetail on that, I agree, I grew up in Grand Rapids, not an older neighborhood, and I frequently back there for different reasons, and I was just back there again. There's these beautiful old neighborhoods from the probably 20s and 30s with these houses that were nicer than a lot of Petoskey's general stock. These are considered general just old. They weren't like mansions or anything. They were built at the time so tight because no one had cars. Everyone walked to the factories and it just totally worked. You go there now, it's not people who have much money. They're not kept up that well. You can't live there. The snow piles, the no parking. It's the whole thing is like, that's a cool house, but it's too tight. It doesn't work for modern people who have a vehicle, God forbid too. You know, it's like a disaster.
And I love the street parking, by the way, that's here, and I think, you
Yeah,
know, that's appropriate. But, should the entire curb be filled with our residents? Probably not.
so I do agree with the point that you can, no rules.
I had similar experience with Forest Hill, so our neighborhood was pretty much a single family neighborhood that they allowed. Duplexes and triplexes. We had a triplex across the street. On a cul-de-sac. That triplex, the people that lived there, it turned over all the time, it was not well kept. And, you know, it was the cars, the traffic, it was, so a cul-de-sac which had 5 houses or whatever, was a triplex. Those are the things that I, worry about when we start taking in if your neighborhood now has no triplexes or quadplexes in it, and all of a sudden that changes, you're gonna have issues with that too. I understand housing density, I understand that we need housing, but right now, how full are the lots of them? Are they filling? Do we know? How full is Maple Block? Until those come along. If we're gonna look at triplexes or quadplexes. I think, at the most, or the least restricted would be to make it a special use, so the neighborhood. The neighbors that are within 300 feet of that property would say, that's something we want here, something.
So that's, just so you know, that's my experience, if I'm correct, is exactly what does not happen. We had the special use meetings for a duplex and everyone came. And the first thing we had to say is, all you people here, we just gotta let you know, we have to approve this tonight to make the conditions. Well, why did we get notified? It's a special condition used by law. So it didn't matter. If they met the criteria, it was a duplex. So we had 20 people come, who were all really mad, and we said, forget it. That's not comfortable.
And there's a lot of,
Yeah,
but if you look at right now, quadplexes and biplexes, anything above a duplex is pretty much only in our RMs. And as we did our walk
Right.
around, you could see where those houses were. I could point out the houses that we saw on State Street as we walked up. You knew exactly, they had multiple mailboxes, and they surely didn't look like the houses around them. If you, the REM, there's some modern housing on Jackson and Ingalls. As soon as you start putting quadplexes and triplexes in my mind, and what has been historically a residential neighborhood, you're making them RM. I would rather see us not do that at all. It's until we. Now, if all of a sudden. Lost that lumber are completely full, April block is completely full, and we're still don't have places for people to live. The planning commission can look at that again. You can look at whether you want to allow those again as a use. And.
But overriding that all is we're supposed to do what the kind of people in Petoskey want. It's not just.
Right, oh yeah. I know,
We decide to change the neighborhood.
right, yeah, because it should come from the people in Petoskey, and I'm wondering what the people in Petoskey want. Quadplexes and triplexes.
And on the other hand, I mean, I'll be the devil's advocate on that a little bit too. I mean, how did it come to be that all the multifamily was dumped on the west side of the river? Well, probably because they were smaller working man's houses, and so when the zoning map was laid out, well, where are we gonna stick all this RM1 and RM2? Well, we sure don't want it on the east side, let's dump it on the west side. And I don't think that's exactly fair either. I know, I believe that the west side neighborhood, you know, deserves to be treated like the east side neighborhood. When you look at the future land use map, you know, it's all yellow. But when you look on the zone district map, there's a big disparity between the east side and the west side. And I believe our west side neighborhood should be better treated, shouldn't be seen as, I'll call it, you know, this is the wrong term to say, it's the dumping ground for multi-family.
I think if we're gonna allow duplexes,
Well, we do.
right, plexes, I know we do, but if we decide that that's something we want in neighborhoods. Then I think we should go the route of, it has to be, you can pick from these styles that fit into Petoskey. And if a quadplex, you require that lot can provide the parking. So that the architecture fits with the, you know, and.
But same thing, we're not just talking about building new.
Right.
If you allow
Right.
someone, they convert.
That's what I'm thinking. I
Right.
know, you know, if you look at some of the houses that are now on, large houses that are now on Michigan Street, large houses that are on Lockwood, block from Harvard, there's a couple of huge houses. There, that could be converted into quadplexes, and I don't know if the neighbors in that neighborhood want that or not, and that certainly we want to hear from. But that, I think that's.
But I think part of enabling that is ensuring that it doesn't distract from the rest of the neighborhood. So that means allowing parking, making sure the setbacks are proper.
Maybe some form-based guidelines.
Yeah, yeah.
Or they
Someone
could
built something.
keep the character of the original house,
Right, yeah.
so it doesn't look like a different house.
Right.
So John, my question again, how different are R1, R2 and R3? If the code was much more based on the neighborhood?
Well, R1. Your R1 district. Is primarily the areas that are up there by Winter Park Lane and up there where Rick lives up there in the hill area. And those are. Larger lots, they have definitely a different character than what you have in the
Right.
east side neighborhoods along. You know, State, Mitchell, Lockwood, and those areas.
But if your code is allowing for that, setbacks and all kinds of parameters are based on the averaging of the block, if you will, or the surround. Then you have more commonality because you don't have to worry about.
Yeah,
Currently, R1 and R2 fall under the same district. I mean, they're basically the same district.
Right.
So,
Side yard setbacks are.
They're-
The difference is that.
Sidewalk
Yeah.
or sidewalk?
as far as what's, yeah,
Yeah.
Because I ran into a whole bunch of things of trying to help people build garages, you know. In the east side neighborhood, it's pretty hard to build a garage in the R1 district, or I mean, sorry, the R2 district. When you have an old house that doesn't have a garage and you gotta have a 10-foot and a 5-foot setback.
mhm.
yeah, your R1, 2 and 3 are pretty. 2 and 3 are really close.
Right.
You know, in terms of what their character is. One's got a little bit different character, because to me, it's got a little bit more of a 1960s, 70s suburban flair to it.
Over by Jennings.
You know.
Seems
Yeah,
like
Jennings
it
been
could be
arguing
R1
about-
as well.
Yeah,
I'll put this one for that.
Right.
That those are much larger lots, not all of the Morgan Street lots are very small. But some of the other lots are not.
So I have a comment about, like, Winter Park, over by the Winter Park, that's R1. South River Road, that's all zone R1. And it's kind of misleading on this map. Because it is owned by the city of Petoskey, right? So,
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things I was going to discuss with you. Some of the communities are. They're classifying any public property as community. So all the parks, city property, county property, cemetery, if it's nonprofit, those all get grouped into like a public classification, so you can see, where all the open spaces, public facilities are.
And
in
the
the
new,
community.
and the new, you're talking about.
Yeah, some of the
Yeah,
communities
yeah,
are classifying it that way.
is the college and like the schools, why aren't those all just institutional?
I don't know. The college here has its own zoning district.
Right.
Which is on the, it's not on this map, is it?
Yeah, it's the blue.
The blue, yeah, okay, yeah, the light blue.
Kind of a weird, yeah.
Yeah, sky blue, it's college, and then you got zoning district for the hospital.
It wouldn't make a difference in my eyes if like the hospital and the college switched places. Either, you know what I mean? Like in the sense of traffic and volume, they're kind of similar. When I was looking at the map between the two, I understand why they're zoned differently, for light. And
I mean,
Emergency vehicle.
Yeah,
That
hospitals
being
got a
true,
lot different, yeah.
Yeah, and the college is in a strong residential area.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it matters, setbacks matter more
Then,
than it does at the hospital
Yeah.
area.
okay,
The hospital is the only place where the height is altitude above sea level.
Or,
The only
Well,
low is altitude above sea level.
Well,
Like 25 feet is not,
Right,
right? Because the first time I saw it, I said, 900 feet, what the heck?
Yeah.
It's all building.
Yes, that was done as part of creating the hospital district,
Right, it was so they could build tall if they wanted.
right?
So how do you want me to, how do you want me to take a look at the residential districts?
well, my first question was, could you combine R1, 2, and 3? Understanding that your setbacks. Front and side and your dimensional requirements would reflect the surrounding. Block or neighborhood, however you wanna call it.
Lisa, what's your thoughts?
So the uses are obviously,
Oh, they're all pretty much the same.
Right.
Yeah.
so. I'm
The-
trying to think of, I'm trying to
The
think of.
front yard is easy because you can take the average on the
Right.
same side of the block.
Right.
The rear yard. You can set a standard, 25, 30, 35 feet, whatever you want. The side yards are, to me, are more of a function of public safety. Doesn't the building code require 10-foot separation there? Max
Yeah.
residential
10 foot.
is it?
Residential.
Yeah, you have like 5 on each side, each property's got 5 and the
what do you
distance
mean
between,
average, though?
you can't.
For side yard setbacks, he's talking between two different properties. If you and your neighbor have structures 5 feet from the property line, is that 10 feet?
Well, they can be tighter, but then you've got fire separation requirements in the building code.
And then
Right.
your cost goes.
Guide people on that, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you don't,
There
yeah,
is some privacy issues for sure,
Yeah.
How close houses are. In-laws were in Curtis Park, not an issue. Inside yard, closer in towns and situations, I mean, in the summer, you hear people talk from their kitchen.
Yeah.
In your house.
right,
But if there's an existing home that's 3 foot from my property line, it shouldn't dictate, I should be able to build the minimum 5 foot from my property line. I don't care that that house was there 100 years ago, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
won't the building official care? Rick?
They might, yeah. If it isn't less than 10, then you're into some kind of fire separation requirement. So there it's 10 or under.
I don't,
Or under
So-
10.
I know for glazing, it's like a certain percent opening, but what is it, an hour?
I think it goes to a 2 hour, doesn't it?
Hour separation.
Yeah.
2
So
hour,
then the amount of glazing, you can't have windows on those sidewalls.
you can still have openings. But it's like a percent base.
Or you also have to have like a sprinkler system, dry or wet.
You can still have openings.
But I know when we,
It's 5 foot.
I know when there's new buildings over in Weequatonson along there. Cause the lots are really small, the Emmett County Building Department's pretty critical about what the separation distance is, and in some cases. The people that have built new buildings, the wall that, because it doesn't meet that 10 foot. They've had to do fire separation and all kinds of stuff in order to meet the building code, or else they won't give them a building permit.
I mean, we have a good example of it would be the fire. Next to our whole side of it got toasted.
Yeah. So the,
What I'm getting at, the front yard and the rear yard are pretty easy to figure out, it's the side yard that's tricky.
right, and in the the side yard, it's commonly 10 feet in community developments to prevent fire spread. And allow for emergency access. Key regulations often mandate a 1 foot minimum offset for roof edges and eaves. These distances ensure adequate separation between buildings. And solar installations create pathways for firefighters. So 10 feet is the
And you're talking
typical.
5 on each, from each yard though.
Yeah,
Well,
Make a total.
right now you can have 30 feet side yards, or is
No.
it 20 feet?
5,
It's
5 and 10.
Yeah, so you can divvy them up. But one side has to be a minimum of 5. So whatever's left over is the other side of the 15 feet.
I think like Max said, just for comfort of being able to like wash your windows or do stuff and walk past the side of your house, it's your property, it's huge.
Yeah.
And 5 foot is not much, especially when you're excavating the angle of repo.
when you're trying to put a ladder up.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe it, it's like 4 feet,
Mhm.
so.
Okay, I've got, neighbors on each side, they each have garages that are right on the property line.
mhm.
Mhm.
So I can't, I'd have to build, if I built something, it'd be, 10 feet from that, or 50?
I don't know, yeah, I don't know, I don't know what it is for a garage, not a,
Different for garage can go right up to the property line?
no, not, those are all non-conforming.
Be at least 3, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't
you
it
can
accessory
get
buildings?
rating by doing
Three.
like double back jet forward. I mean, it's not.
Well, I'm not planning on doing anything, but it kind of ticked me off when I did the survey. They're both, on each side, they're both right on the property.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents' garage, the garage next door, like, the eaves, there's like 3 inches from the eaves, because we could go from, as kids, we could go from one garage to the other, not that we were ever on the garage road. You're still. But, but that
Was there enough space to get in between the paint?
Not really. But so that's part of what my little discussion was. Is should we look at also what is in some of these, I don't know what to call them, but the built out neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And should we have a zone that 80% of the houses in that zone are not in the zone?
Right, well, we're talking about not doing that.
We're not talking about not doing that.
Right.
But I think you can take it too far. In other words, some of this. I've got a garage with a 0 setback, right on the line. At some point, you might argue, well, it's okay because that's the way they did it. On the other hand, you could say, well, we wouldn't want more of that.
Right,
Like someone to build a new big. We'd rather have a little,
Right, or.
And there's a percent,
Then 2
buddy.
stories a lot
right,
in your 1-story footprint.
right.
I think we're doing a pretty good job of covering that already too, especially when you consider your front yard setback. Is average between 3 houses that are on.
Same side of the block.
Yeah,
I actually feel like that should be a bigger number
you do.
of averaging.
Oh, I usually do the whole block.
Yeah,
You could get a weird situation.
yeah.
And there are strange houses, there is a set way back,
Yeah.
or like your house, it's
Right.
too close.
Yeah, the house that was built on Michigan Street, that's a new construction with a single car and a half garage. I think it was built by,
Bentham,
no.
one in Harvest Street.
Anyways, that house originally sat way back and then they moved it up. And it fits the character a lot better, but the style of the house doesn't necessarily fit the architectural vernacular, so.
Is that the one right there by Harvest Street?
Yeah.
That's Jeff Grantham.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't?
They're.
They own the Maple.
Yes,
Place,
Harvard.
yes, yeah.
Oh,
Grantham was on the other side,
yeah. and then-
Okay.
of Harvey in Michigan.
oh, okay.
There's the roof. I heard it was first there, but it-
What do you want to do with? What do you want to do with the RM districts? I kind of agree with Rick a little bit.
Right.
It was common planning theory years ago, decades ago, that planners would identify neighborhoods and they came to the assumption that neighborhoods that have a lot of I would say working families or lower income families, those were the neighborhoods that you wanted to convert into multiple family. Okay? And it really became an injustice because a lot of small houses were carved up inappropriately and it changed the neighborhood character, even though in these areas today in Petoskey, there's a lot of nice single family neighborhoods. They all have that RM kind of like hanging over their head that they could be.
Well, historically, that's where the federal government said, all, you know, urban renewal happened in those neighborhoods
Yeah.
and
Under the same
interstate
pretext.
highways happened in those.
So, I mean, you've got a fair chunk on both sides of the Bear River that are RM1 and RM2. There's not a lot of differences in the land use, but a lot of the housing in there is single family. So,
And dimensional requirements are fairly similar, except RM1 has a much bigger front yard.
Oh, RM2 has a bigger height.
Bigger, yeah, RM2 has a bigger height, and RM1 has a front yard setback, it's twice as much.
But what are you suggesting?
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out some ideas.
I'm not
I mean,
sure.
I'm not sure I'm suggesting anything right now. I'm thinking that it geographically, it's a large area. A lot of the properties in there are single family. It could be, we could classify it in a different residential classification called maybe mixed neighborhood. Or, but something that recognizes that, you know, the character of the neighborhood is combinations, primarily single family with a scattering of some multifamily apartments. And the apartments that you find in there, like there's the one on the corner of, what's it, Ingalls and Monroe or Jackson, maybe?
Jackson.
Yeah. How many units is there? 5, 6? Right there in the
That
corner.
commercial building?
There's the commercial building, there's an apartment building, and then there's a
Apartment, yeah.
house that's also an apartment.
Yeah,
building.
I'm talking about the apartment buildings, not really big, but
No, I don't,
Stucco.
yeah.
I guess the question is, do we wanna promote taking down 3 houses and creating multi-unit housing?
no.
So then these existing ones should be kind of like the corner grocery.
Yeah.
Mixed in, so they either stay that way.
Or they become
or they-
non-conforming, or you
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
turn something into it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you
It would just be sort of grandfathered in, but we want to introduce more into that neighborhood.
They protect the people from taking a couple of small houses and making it.
Yeah, that's already happened a few times
Yeah.
in town.
John, is there any rules municipalities can do on lot combinations? The ability to combine lots?
A big foot.
Can you prohibit it?
Yeah, you can do that.
How do you do it?
You can do it through an overlay or some standards in your code relative to community character.
Why can't we do an overlay for duplexes then and multi-family
Yeah.
on the, like you had mentioned earlier, the heavy traffic areas like Kalamazoo, where the corner grocer is.
Mhm.
It would make more sense in my eyes do it in an area like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it that way too. You don't have to do it necessarily as an overlay. I think you can do it, a duplex. You can either do it by right if it meets all the standards of the code, or you can do it by a special land use permit. I like Cynthia's idea. The community is not that big where you can't have a pattern book. You know, where you have like 3 or 4 common designs that you know are gonna fit into the neighborhood, and if somebody wants to build a duplex. Here's the book, here's 3 different designs, pick from one. They're already kind of pre-qualified by the planning commission. They all fit in with the neighborhood, go ahead and do it,
It's a good.
you know?
But
My
then it
concern
ends
is
up
that,
with a builder track neighborhood, I would not like that. I like the idea of architecturally significant. Quadplexes or triplexes, but I mean, I don't want to pick from a design, I want something unique. On
Well,
every corner, if this is gonna be.
Well, but that, you know, but that's where you can get in trouble too, with something unique where then the neighborhood says, wow, that really looks out of place, or, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, so.
and my concern is not so much. If there were an empty lot and putting something up, the neighbors. But my concern is taking. I know houses, if you're Petoskey, you know that, I know houses by people's name. So you take the Garthy house on Lockwood Street, some of us know it's a big white house. Large white house halfway up the block between Lockwood and Lookout. Or where the old Lockwood Hospital is. I'm concerned about somebody taking that. And cutting it up
yeah, it's a big one.
into 4 quadplexes with stairways going to the side. Which is how we have now use stairways, have to go to the side. That's gonna change the character of that neighborhood. So I'm more concerned about how they do a conversion. Of a large house, so we do have a lot of large houses that could become.
Well, that neighborhood's not, that doesn't allow anything more than a duplex in that neighborhood.
Right now, but if we talk about, what's the top of a large house on State Street, Lockwood?
Well, I don't think we really have decided that.
No,
that's
but
what
if we
we're doing.
decide, that's my concern about deciding going.
Yeah.
So well, the pattern book doesn't help us with that. You can't do a pattern book,
Well, if you're
How-
rehabbing a house.
right, and that's, you know, and that's what did happen. My thinking on Jackson Street. Going up here. At first, Jackson. And Jefferson Street. Were where the original physicians lived. So those were large physician houses. That converted because they were easy, they had the square feet inside converted to apartments. So now we have large houses. All over town in different neighborhoods, and I would just say to see those converted, so my concern is more not building new on a pattern book. But taking a classic old house and cutting it up into 4 apartments.
Yeah, so-
And on the traffic and other things that I mentioned.
I had talked to a lady on Jackson once I was campaigning, but, and she said. It was an old lady, and she said, literally, I woke up one day and they had rezoned my neighborhood, multifamily. And after that,
Mhm.
it just went to crap. Part of the problem was though, is they didn't have a lot of the codes and regulations.
Right.
So people were, not only were they splitting them up, but they weren't safe, they were not wired, right, they didn't look good, it was really bad.
I mean, there's a property on, I think it's Monroe. It
So
was
some of that-
this lumber company's house.
Some of that has been remedied with modern codes and requirements,
Mhm.
so.
Max, I'm thinking about, we have landlords here that have built apartment buildings, and they don't fit with the neighborhood, they're cheaply
Right,
created. That's what I want to avoid.
right.
I don't know if there's a way of saying, you do these, or you have to seek approval. Architectural standard approvals.
and I think that's great, yeah.
But you're talking about cheaply done, I know in East Grand Rapids, there's a few tear downs and. Really nice traditional neighborhoods, and people put up these glass
Mhm.
things that don't. I mean, someone might like their, it doesn't fit in at all, it's weird. And the neighbors don't like it.
We still have no real rental enforcement code. At this point.
Not.
So, and that's a tough thing there's a lot of expense and everything, I understand that.
Right,
But I bet that's another reason, until you have a way of taking care of the house, I mean, we have the International Building Code that we can
Yeah.
follow, but we don't. as a landlord, you do not have to get a license, you don't have to have an inspection, other than maybe first do it. Or unless your residents could complain and say that this house isn't safe, then they don't know where they're gonna live if they do. So, you know. Also, to me, that goes hand in hand. too, when we start
John,
looking at-
what are your thoughts? So there are some neighborhoods that are. Are in neighborhoods now, and they were clearly, maybe it's Jackson's, they were just all single family homes. It wasn't a neighborhood where there was some duplexes and quad, they was just single family homes. So now what it is the same homes. If some of them have been mucked up, some have been divided up and carved up. And some have been left, and actually some are going back to single family homes. What do you think you do? Do you say that's more of a single family home neighborhood?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
And-
kind of what this future land use map is showing.
Yeah. It's really what it was.
Where it says mixed residential,
Mixed
what's
residential.
the term mixed mean?
I think it's got multiple, or multi-family and single in there. With Jackson and,
Mixed residential one and mixed residential two.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on just? How many is a mixed residential and allow up to quadplexes? Is that what you thought?
No, I haven't really thought it through yet. I'm just trying to get an idea of. I guess what I'm saying is the areas that they have that are currently zoned RM1, RM2. You would look at the map and think those are all apartments, but really they're the majority, they're single family. With a scattering of some units that have been carved up,
Even Division Street.
But-
it's almost right in.
but. And then the future land use map shows it kind of going back. To maybe more of a single family context, and I kind of agree with that.
I feel like we should. Provide more single family in these neighborhoods that we're talking about, and then push the redevelopment of, some land along the river,
Mhm.
like the lumber lots.
Yeah.
And the maple lot to the, for multifamily.
That whole level.
Yeah. Maybe that's the solution.
And maybe some of the denser ones need to be on major artery roads. No.
I don't even think they're area to build those.
Yeah, maybe not.
Limited.
I would think based on. If you take a look at the number of units in Maple Block. You may end up with between around 500 people that live there, 550. I bet you like in the area of Liberty, Monroe, Jackson, Madison, you're not gonna have that many people that live in that area.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that the Maple Block is almost a neighborhood in itself. When you compare it to some of the other areas. So, yeah, I think if there's one thing dramatic you could do on the residential side of the ledger. Would be to change that RM2 area. Back into single family.
yeah.
I agree with that.
That's it, then also would allow some of those houses that. To become starter homes for some people, And John and I would have a discussion about that. I would not have a problem. Well, I don't know how you would enforce it, but make it a large house. And make it into condos, so we're both home, owner occupied, but how do you prevent it from renting? I don't know, you can, but.
Yeah.
I'm so confused because I thought you were against that.
I'm-
Cutting them off.
I'm against the
Is it
cutting
because
of,
they're renting them? Cause it sounds like,
well, the problem with rentals is that I have a problem with that sometimes you don't have. The commitment to, so that's my thought.
I mean, one thing I would like to see is more transformation of the. Existing industry into the multifamily residential, like it goes along Buckley Avenue and Sheridan,
Right.
like
Right.
all of those like hodgepodge old buildings. I
Right.
mean, there are great businesses in there now, but
Mhm.
that would be great to see developed as multifamily.
Absolutely.
Like, those are some areas where I think we should be focusing
Right.
on.
Right, and that wouldn't be tear downs.
No, that would be right.
That would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
where that J.
Well, yeah,
Johnson
but you wouldn't
or
tear it
whatever
down.
Right.
Single family homes.
There's like a excavating company in there.
Yeah.
like Behind Elder Piper, like all of that stuff is like, why is that? trying to
Oh, that's
relocate
the
the
industrial
industry.
area was always.
Well, that's
industrial.
Yeah, exactly, so we need to like push that out.
Along the
top,
river,
but-
everything along the river was industrial.
Well, that's what your future land use map has, that is neighborhood mixed use.
Yeah,
And that, those were redevelopment areas that were singled out in the plan. And, you know, the one area that you're talking about, that one long ribbon of industrial property was
Yeah.
designated as a redevelopment site, so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of consistent with what's in the plan itself.
Just my question, John, was how much trouble do you think you would get into or problems with soil contamination in some of these industrial former?
If it's solvable, I mean, you got Maple Block was a brownfield.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're all,
They
yeah,
all need remediation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sometimes.
And that's a good thing.
yeah.
What did you say?
Sometimes brownfield actually gives them access to.
Right,
capital
to
that they
funds.
don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I got an idea from you on the business districts. I'll have to start thinking it through on the overlay for the height and view shed. Do you want me to come back with a map for both the business and the residential districts and then a bucket of uses for each one, so we can, at the next meeting, we can start talking about all that?
yeah, that would be very useful.
And business first and residential second.
What's that?
I would say business first to try to get that.
Yeah, yeah,
And maybe hand us out something to look at for residential, otherwise we can just.
yeah.
In the residential, like if we're saying that the existing R2 could potentially roll into like just the R1 or whatever, the R2 districts, can we have a map? Do we know like exactly where, like apartment buildings are within certain areas? Like, can we put those in pink or something? Just see where they-
Is it by
Yeah.
utility?
Maybe I'd have to check.
Yeah,
We'll check. We may have some databases that we maybe pull it from.
I know like around Sheridan, east of Emmett Street, there's a couple where we given them, you know, rural parking or whatever. We have a couple there, but.
Yeah, we can, we'll check and see if we can.
John?
Yeah.
With R3's potential requirements. We look for them almost, so
What's that?
what's now R3? The dimension requirements for R3. My sense, at least most of the old town, it's been built out for, since the 1900s. Would fit in with the current R3 dimension.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I think that we do have a couple R1. And we want to save on those, but that's really the only, it's up by our Curtis Park, it's up by, what we used to call Philadelphia Grand Avenue area. By Jennings and, you know, the new subdivisions up there. Well, most of the other ones, I think. Most of the city fit in R3.
Yeah, R3, why is it really any different than the R2?
Yeah.
it's not, they're really not.
There's very few 7,200 square foot lots. And,
I think the differentiation, the way I looked at it, was the R1 is more of a suburban style.
Right,
And then the R2 and the R3 were more of a historic neighborhood style.
Right.
You know, with the traditional lots, traditional blocks, some of them have alleys,
right.
stuff like that. But you know, you get down to, you know, like in your neighborhood, Al, and Hillcrest, Lawrence, Morgan, Curtis, that was more of a kind of like your suburban,
Right, it was
you know,
built-
one story ranch houses, things
Right.
along those
Our house
lines.
was
Same
built-
thing up at Brown Winter Park Lane, which is kind of a newer form of it, but
Right.
the densities there are definitely different and the feel of the character is definitely
Some of the
different.
houses south of Jennings.
Yeah.
Were later, were built later.
And what's always bothered me is there, if you look at the difference or the delineation between R1 and R2. At Lake Street, Bay Street, and Rose Street. It's never been right, you know,
Yeah.
Rose Street and Bay Street really should be part of the R2.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Part of R1.
right, and that's what I'm saying, when you look at the houses, and other than. There's very few lots that are, you know, minimum width of 70 feet, I think it. I would, you know, do a fan, do a vet, but I don't vet at all, in order to extend. Fan do, I would say 80% of the houses in Petoskey, lots of less than 50 feet wide.
I struggled to help some of my neighbors who wanted to build garages that were in the R1 district. according to the map, but it was just like R2 everywhere else, you know, and they couldn't build a garage because it was, you know, the setback was too much for R1. But
I'd like
it's an
to know
R2 neighborhood.
what is to start with, and then.
Who would have worked in it?
Yeah, it would have worked in R2, but not in R1.
Okay,
Do you have closure?
I think so. I
Okay.
got some homework.
Uh-huh.
Is it-
All right, so I guess I will open up the floor for public comments. After our discussion, if anybody would like to speak. You raise your hand if you're on the computer and.
Is it a public comment for what you've been discussing?
Yeah.
Or something that, okay,
That's for what we've been discussing.
I think that the only thing is that we own property that's right along the B3A district, and so our concern really was the height that you would. And just more is because there's just no buffer between the
Right.
residential and the B3A all the way up and down.
Right,
So that was our concern, is the height not going higher, because there's really problems that you have with even a 2-story. And if you go 3 or 4, then that's even. So that's, you know, our concern, and everything is residential too, what you're trying to do, which. And sounding pretty positive, I guess, on what hopefully the direction goes,
right,
so.
thank you. People that like,
No,
all right. Move on to commissioner comments. You all good? Updates?
Commented out.
I'm good. All right, I'll call adjournment. At 7:30.